Howdy everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Stefan and this is the French Cooking Academy, the channel to watch if you want to learn how to cook authentic French dishes. Now today we've got two announcements to make. First off, new location, new kitchen. We're in a farmhouse stay for 1 month as we're traveling through France and we've got a brand new kitchen. Quite exciting. Look at that, looks very good, very rustic. And the announcement number two is that yes, vegetarian, I've heard you. A lot of people have been passionate and tell me, oh, there's not enough vegetarian dishes. And it's true. I've been doing a lot of meat and fish dishes. So I thought today we're going to concentrate our efforts on a vegetarian recipe. And it's quite a special one as well. So keep watching. The recipe of the day is called œuf chimay, les œufs chimay, or in English, the eggs in a chimay style. And they are called that way because a cook back in the 1700s dedicated this recipe to a lady, which was the Princess of Chimay, which is actually called, in fact, Teresa Tallien. She's got a very long history. She's a noble girl, half French, half Spanish, and she's been married multiple times. And at the end of her life, she even became the Princess of Chimay, which is in Belgium. So if you want to read her history, I will put a link in the video description. Now for the recipe itself, it's a very simple but interesting thing. We're going to take some eggs that we're going to boil. They are hard-boiled eggs. And then we're going to remove the egg yolk that is cooked from the inside and mix it with a Duxelle of mushroom, which is this mix of mushroom, shallots and parsley. And when you got that mix, we're going to fill the eggs back with that and we're going to cover the eggs with a mornay sauce, which is a bechamel with a beautiful cheese. And then we're going to cover the eggs with the cheese or the mornay sauce, put this under the broiler and you end up with a delicious little starter you won't want to miss. So let's see how to make that recipe. Now let's start that recipe. Now before we start to do anything, I'd like to point out that it's not because it is a vegetarian recipe that it's automatically super easy. Now in this episode actually it's going to be 3 technical steps we're going to have to go through. And the first thing is going to have to be knowing how to properly make some boiled eggs, some hard boiled eggs, then make a Duxelle of mushroom, and to finish we have to make a bechamel and transform it into a mornay sauce. And so there's 3 technical step that we're going to be learning in this class. And these are all the ingredients. All the information will be in the video description. My mise en place of food preparation is now done and we're ready to start the egg chimay, which is the eggs that are filled with the Duxelle and mushroom and covered with the mornay sauce. As you can see, everything is here and don't slack off with the mise en place. Mushrooms are ready, the shallots is ready, I've got my trimming for the flavoring, and the cheese and the butter and the flour has been weighed, as well as the milk. Everything is set, now we can start cooking. We're now ready to go on the stove. We're gonna start by having some water, a pan with water to prepare our hard-boiled eggs. And that's simmering on the side, and we're gonna start immediately making the Duxelle of mushrooms. In this pan, that's the only pan I've got here, so we start with a little bit of butter in here. And as soon as it's foaming, we're gonna put the shallots in. Alright, butter is foaming, take all the shallots and straight in. And we're gonna let them sweat on a low heat just for a few minutes. After 1 minute or so, my shallots are there, no coloration, and immediately I'm gonna add all of the mushrooms and mix it well with the butter. And you can raise your heat a little bit to maybe medium. And if you want in here, you can add a little bit of lemon juice to avoid that the whole mix gets too brown, but this is optional. I'm adding a bit of rock salt. I like rock salt lately, I kind of really get this strong sea flavor. Now as soon as you put your heat on medium, as you can see here, what happens is that it starts to boil. This is the natural water contained in the mushrooms that starts to evaporate. And this is the intention. If you don't know what the Duxelle of mushroom is, it's a base for a lot of stuffing in French cooking. Like in this case, we're gonna stuff some eggs. And it's a dry Duxelle, so it's just shallots, mushrooms, and we're gonna remove all of the water to get a really kind of a dryish yet tender mix and concentrate the flavors of mushrooms. And that's what's gonna give the big taste in our dish today. And now let's move on to the making of the hard-boiled egg. So it sounds such a very simplistic thing to do, and yet there is a technical aspect to it. So what is the technique? So you start with boiling water. You've got your eggs. Once the water boils, we're going to plunge the eggs one by one. Now once you've plunged the egg, what happens usually is that it stops the boiling. So you have to wait. It doesn't take long, but you need to wait until the boils come back before you can start timing. This is the secret. A lot of time people throw things straight into the boiling water and start counting. So as an information, medium-sized eggs up to 60 grams, it is 10 minutes exactly as soon as the boiling starts again. So let's say from here, we're going to start counting 10 minutes on the clock. And when it's 10 minutes, we're going to turn the heat off and take the eggs out, and they should be ready. We're now back to the Duxelle of mushroom, which is now dry, as you can see. And the last touch is to throw in some parsley. So I just had to go in the garden quickly, and about half a spoon of parsley in there. You can turn the heat off. It's dry enough. And we're going to leave this to rest on the side and continue with the preparation, making the bechamel sauce. And now for the bechamel sauce, my advice, always start with the milk first and make a warm, flavored milk. This is what's going to give you taste in the bechamel sauce. So we've got some milk in here. There's a bit of parsley that's in there. I'm going to take some of the trimmings of the mushrooms that I had before, and that whole piece of shallots. So no waste. We're going to use the whole thing. Just throw it in there. A bit of salt as well, just a pinch. And I'm going to put as well a grating of fresh nutmeg. As soon as all the flavoring is in, we're going to gently bring this to the boil, but very, very gently, because we want to give time for the milk to infuse with these lovely flavors. So we're going to leave this, and we're going to prepare the roux, which is the binding agent of a bechamel sauce. I'll give you the explanation just in a bit. Now, just before we start the roux, I have to take off the eggs. So the eggs, you take them and you plunge them in a bowl here I've got with cold water. And now making the roux. So you're going to start with a clean pan, and we're going to melt an equal amount of butter and flour. Let's say we use an equal amount of butter and flour to make the roux. Now, if you don't know what the roux is, it is a mix of flour and butter that you use as a thickening agent for sauces, but more commonly to make the white sauce, okay, in French called the bechamel sauce. So it's very simple. You melt your butter first, and as soon as it's melted, we're going to add all of the flour in equal amount. Okay, all the butter is melted, and you take all of the flour and you're going to incorporate it on a low heat. You don't need a high heat for that. And you're going to make a kind of a paste. As you can see, do you see what happened here? So we're going to cook it for 1 or 2 minutes and then turn the heat off and let it cool down before we add the milk in. Now, as soon as the eggs are ready, the shells are removed, we need to cut them in half, which is always... So you need a very thin... I'm going to try with that very thin Japanese knife and try to find the middle there. And cleanly, as much as you can, separate them like this. And the next challenge is to actually get the egg yolks in there out, okay, and reserve them in a Duxelle here, and you'll see why. So take all of the egg yolks out of each shell and you reserve your. Make sure you don't break the eggs because we're gonna have to fill them up with the stuffing afterwards. All done. So once you're done, you've got on one side all of the empty shells, and even if you got a bit of egg yolk in there, it does not matter because it's going to be filled up and covered in sauce, so you're not going to see it. And here is the rest. So the recipe says that we need to put the egg yolks and mix them with the Duxelle of mushroom that we had. I thought that really so many egg yolks would have overpowered the Duxelle, so I've just put a few, just enough for me, so that you don't end up with just egg yolks. And the only thing to do here for egg stuffing is to mix the egg yolks with the Duxelle. Now ultimately, if you're not a fan of egg yolks, you can discard them and just put the mushrooms in. And finally, when your stuffing is done, it's just a matter of trying to grab some of the stuffing in a spoon or something like that. And we're gonna fill the eggs back or recreate the eggs, and with of course a bit more because that's a little starter, so you want to have some stuffing, but don't overdo it. Something about that much is good, and you have a stuffed eggs. Now that the eggs are ready, we can continue with our sauce. Now if your milk is not hot enough, please warm it up and make sure it's at least on a simmer. So we're gonna filter our milk over the cold roux. Let me show you the cold roux. As you can see, it's very stiff. So I'm going to use a little sieve like that, and we don't want the skin, the mushrooms or whatever. And without the heat being on under the pan, you start by putting all of that in. I'm gonna discard my spoon and start using a whisk. And then we're gonna put the heat on medium under the pan. Once the heat is on, you're gonna keep stirring like this with your whisk gently until the sauce starts to thicken. Now 3 minutes later, look at this. Take a spoon to show you. You see? That starts to thicken. So when you reach that level, you want your sauce to boil for at least 1 or 2 minutes. 2 minutes have passed. I turn my heat off and I'm gonna leave my bechamel sauce. This is the bechamel sauce, by the way, the basic white sauce. And we need to incorporate an egg yolk. I've got my egg yolk, one for half a liter of bechamel. And here we're gonna transform a simple bechamel sauce into a mornay sauce, which is basically bechamel with some egg yolk and cheese. So you first incorporate the eggs. As soon as that's done, we're gonna add the grated cheese in. Some cheese, and same thing here. We're gonna incorporate. Now if it gets too cold, you can put the heat back on to make sure your cheese has totally melted, and then we're done. And now for the final step, dressing the eggs. So you can take any dish you want, you can put multiple eggs, but I'm just using a tiny one here. I'm gonna put a little bit of the sauce at the bottom to make sure my egg is gonna stand nicely on there. And you have to cover the egg with sauce. And we're gonna pass this then in the oven for a little bit. So a little bit of more sauce, up. I'm gonna add a little bit of cheese, hint of cheese on top. And we're gonna put this in the oven just for it to to the broiler, just to melt the cheese and get some color on top, and then it's ready to serve. Wow, just out of the oven, so it's very quick under the broiler. Make sure you put it on a very high temperature, it just took like 2 or 3 minutes. And glacé in French, it just means to color and make a little crust like this. So your mornay sauce is just having some color, and we're not cooking the eggs or anything like this. So the egg is in there. I'm gonna try to, so it looks a bit messy, but to have an idea, that's the stuffed egg. Try to give you a bit of a picture how it looks like. So you see that's the egg, you got the stuffing, and you got the sauce. Let's try. I think I might burn myself. I'm gonna try that. Interesting. I love the combination of the mushroom. It reminds me of the crepe I've done, the ham and mushroom crepes. It's very nice. I think the sauce, you know what? The mornay sauce, that cheesy sauce with the egg, is really what makes the dish. The mushroom is like a nice addition in the background, but that cheesy sauce with the egg like that, delicious. And here is the egg chimay in all its glory. This is my serving suggestion, 1 egg per person. But I'm really curious to hear from you guys. If you are vegetarian, what do you think of these types of recipe that are a bit more involved and has a few culinary techniques into it? And of course, if you make the recipe, tell me as well, did you like it? That's what I want to know. But as for me, I will leave you with that beautiful picture, and just remind you, you can follow me on the Instagram, #FrenchCookAcademy, or Facebook. I have also a Patreon account. You can become a patron on my Patreon page. And the new thing now, if you become a patron, you get a discount on my new merchandise store that I've just put live, where you can get all the t-shirts and mugs with the channel logo and some other merchandise I've just created. So have a look, it's all in the video description. As for me, I see you all next week for another video. Take care all, bye bye.